Welcome back. Today we have a pretty cool video because two subscribers have sent through their games and we're going to review them together, see how well they did, and we're going to take away some key lessons from these games. So let's get into it. Okay, game number one, e4, e5. Our subscriber is playing black. You can see on the right hand side all the ELO ratings. Bishop c4, Italian game. So the first few moves, we'll just rush through them because they're pretty standard. Knights come out, bishops come out. Castle and bishop e3, pretty thematic. White is going to essentially try to castle kingside, and white wants black to trade on e3, and white's going to accept the double pawns in exchange for the open file to attack black on the kingside. So bishops trade d6, and now white probably a little bit prematurely plays g4. G4 is not horrible, but a3 would have been a little bit better because that allows the bishop to drop back to a2, because if you're going to play g4, you want to preserve that bishop, that light squared bishop, because that's going to be a key attacking piece. But instead, g4 was played, and our subscriber took advantage. Knight a5, g5. Once the g-pawn is traded off, knight takes c4. D takes c4, and this is an important position to start looking at. What has white done here? White has pretty much crippled their pawn structure in exchange for open lines to attack black's king. And now what black played, knight to h7, is a very important defensive maneuver. You should remember it for your games, because let's just take one step back. In this position, white's most dangerous, most advanced, and most annoying piece is this knight on g5. And white's attack is going to be centered around supporting that knight with the rooks, the queen, and possibly this other knight jumping into d5 to dislodge black's defensive knight and launching an attack on black's king that way. So by playing this move, knight to h7, we essentially force that knight either to go backwards or to trade. And better would have been backwards, because then at least white preserves that knight for any future attack. But now black doesn't take back the knight instantly, but instead plays the hammer, queen to h4 check. So who's attacking who now? And if you've seen enough of my videos, you'll know that I'm a big fan of castling and getting your king to safety early. In this case, white prematurely attacked and is already getting punished. So king to d2, king to h7, and now black's king is nice and safe on h7. In fact, it's black who has more control over the king side now, and white again is just left with a horrible pawn structure. So queen e2, and this is the first mistake our subscriber makes. They play f5, allowing e takes f5 and bishop takes f5. Now, why is this a positional mistake, and what can we learn from this? So firstly, it looks tempting to put that bishop on this file. It looks nice. The problem is, your advantage as black in this position is the fact that white's pawn structure is crippled. And especially these e-pawns, like this e4 pawn, it's always going to be a weakness if you let it be. Let your opponent deal with their own weaknesses. Let them have to defend them. You don't want to remove your opponent's weaknesses for them. And f5 does just that. So what can we do instead? Well, the best plan here for black is actually a funny little one, but the idea is play g6, slide your king to g7, and then pile your rooks up onto that h-file. Because at the moment, you can't even really take this h-pawn because it just allows an attack on your king. So you slide your king to g7, and then you can put your rooks on h8. That bishop's going to go onto that natural e6 square, and then after rook h5, the other rook's going to come in, and you've got dominance on the king side. So small positional mistake. And this actually allowed white to equalize the game. But nonetheless, a few moves later, our subscriber here is black, played a beautiful tactic and won the game. Here white made a mistake knight to d5, and black took advantage of it. So you've got to be careful here. There's a bit to calculate because white is threatening to take on c7, forking the bishop and the rook, and that's going to be very nasty. c6. So white here thinks, oh yes, I am winning that rook because I'm going to win the exchange either way because that bishop is undefended. However, our subscriber proves that they're 2050 rating and calculated a beautiful sequence. Watch this. Bishop takes c4. Attacking the queen and skewering to win that rook on f1. So white is forced to play queen to g4. Queen trade. H takes g4 check. The king drops back. White picks up the rook. Black picks up a rook. But suddenly you realize white's knight has no way to escape. White can move the knight to c7, but then if we can take that e6 square away from the knight, that knight cannot escape, and we can just win it. So here, white played b3, bishop g2, rook g1, bishop to d5, taking away that e6 square. Nice and calm. Knight c7, bishop to f7, neutralizing that knight, and now we're threatening to play rook c8 and pick up the knight. Absolutely beautiful, and this had to all be calculated when black played c6. g5, g6, stopping white from moving that pawn to g6 and dislodging the bishop, and rook c8, rook f6, boom, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And you got to say, black defended well from the start, got a positional advantage, and now is seeing it through with some beautiful tactics. Rook takes d6, and we can sort of fast forward the next series of moves. It's just a bunch of maneuvering. Black wins that crucial pawn on g5, and after a few moves, you can see more maneuvering, more pawns are traded. The final position, bishop to d7, white resigned. Black is still a piece up and is just going to make a queen out of one of these pawns. So just to recap this game, beautiful positional play, beautiful defensive play by black, nice tactical vision. Again, sometimes you just got to calculate things through a few moves ahead, a few moves further than your opponent will, and in this case, that involved winning that knight on c7. Beautiful game. Okay, so let's head to game number 2. Our subscriber is playing black, and this is a Caro-Kann defense transposed from a d4 opening. Advanced variation, and this is typically a nice variation for black because it allows them to get that the light squared bishop outside of the pawn chain. So usually in a French defense, this bishop would still be on c8. In this advanced Caro-Kann, it's on f5 outside of this pawn chain. So it's a bit more active. c5, classic idea here. We are undermining white's strong pawn center by attacking that d4 pawn. Knight f3, knight c6, pretty standard moves. Castle, and an interesting little move, bishop to g4 by black. Black is essentially saying, I want to trade my bishop for either your light squared bishop or one of your knights because the position's closed and I think I can benefit from that trade. So unfortunately white blundered immediately because knight to e1 actually just takes away a defender from the most important pawn in white's position, d4, and black can essentially win the pawn straight away. So our subscriber played bishop takes e2, queen takes e2, and now unfortunately they missed c takes d4, which wins a pawn, and played knight to h6, knight f3, knight to f5, beautiful square for the knight, and again piling up the pressure on the d4 pawn. So here white did a smart thing, which is bishop to g5. Again, here white has you'll find yourself in this situation as well in the future. White has a dark squared bishop, which is essentially a bad bishop in these kind of positions. It really is limited because it's usually operating inside its pawn chain. So here white pretty much forces, doesn't force, but black's best is to allow white to trade the bishop. So now we just have knights left on the board. Neither side has any bad bishop left. You can kind of see black's knights are a bit more active than white's. White's are pretty defensive, and here again white is going to lose that d4 pawn soon, so white trades it off. D takes c4, queen takes c4, and unfortunately white still loses a pawn anyway. They play knight to d4, and after the trades here, queen to d4. Let's pause and just take in this position. So black's won a pawn, the most important pawn in white's position, d4, and now black has the advantage. Black has good placement of the knight. The queen can easily drop back to b6, which is the best square for the queen in this position, and black's plan is simple. Castle kingside and move that rook from f8 to c8 and apply pressure down the c-file. Try to double rooks and infiltrate on the c-file, all whilst maintaining a pawn advantage. So let's see how the game unfolds. Knight to f3, queen to g4. Again, that queen belongs on b6. I'll just show you why. On b6, the queen is on the queen side, funnily enough. The action is going to happen on the queen side, like we said with the c-file. We are applying pressure on the b2 square, b2 pawn. We are controlling these key dark squares, and even our queen could jump to b4 possibly down the line. And it's just a good square for the queen overall. However, on g4, which is what black played, it actually doesn't do much, and it's a good point to remember in your games. Think about what would be the best square for a certain piece, and you want to essentially formulate your plans around simply putting your pieces on their best squares. In this case, there's no action happening on the king side, and in fact, after rook e1 castles, h3 just kicks the queen away, and the queen returns again, possibly to b6. But in this case, our subscriber played queen to e7, which is fine, just a little bit more passive of a square than b6 for the queen. Okay, rook to c1. Like we said, the c-file is the open door in this position. It's the open door for white to enter black's position, and also black to enter white's. So this is where the battle is going to happen. Rook to c8, b4, b5. The queen side pawn structure gets locked up, but with b4, it's important to note that that c4 square is now permanently a hole or an outpost in white's position. Let's see how black makes the most of it. Queen to b2, and here unfortunately black plays a mistake because it allows white, if white had played it, to take, trade the rooks, and play rook to c1, because here, after the queen moves, queen to c3 cements white's dominance of that open door, the c-file. However, white missed that and instead played knight to d4, which is a mistake for obvious reasons, because we're not taking advantage of black's mistake. But it also, from a strategic perspective, from a positional perspective, it allows black to get one step closer to a winning endgame by trading a pair of knights. And as more and more pieces get traded, black's just going to be left with a d-pawn, an extra d-pawn, a protected passed extra d-pawn. So black's going to win any endgame we enter. Rook to c8, beautiful play, forcing white to essentially give up control of the c-file, and queen takes c7 just cements it for black. So we looked at it before. White could have got a grip on the c-file, but instead it's black with the grip, and black's going to infiltrate on c2, c3, c4, wherever they want, wherever the position dictates later on. King h2. And this is a beautiful move. I love this move. h6, absolutely beautiful, because black is essentially saying, white, you have no useful moves in this position. You've got no plans. My position is absolutely solid. I'm just going to play a nice, simple move, h6, and allow my king to have an escape square, remove any back rank threats you might have down the line, and just slowly improve my position. Just a little bit of lift for the king before I come hunting you down. rook e3, a5, the pawns get traded on the queen side, and queen to c4 more or less forces white to exchange queens. And now after b takes c4, black has a very dominant endgame because these pawns are just going to march through. In fact, the immediate threat is c3, and the only way to stop that is rook to c3. But we're just going to play d4, c3, and d3, d2 is coming, and white is helpless. So what did white play? White played f4, c3, and simply after c2, f takes e6, f takes e6. White resigned the game, and black won a very beautiful positional game. And I must say, for a 1200 rated player, very clean game. Minimal mistakes, minimal weaknesses, just end-to-end beautiful game. Well done. So there we have it. A couple of nice games reviewed and a few important lessons we can all learn from them. If you like this format, or if you want me to review one of your games in a future video, I'll drop my email address in the comment section. Just send your games through there. Otherwise, check out the website. I'll just leave a link in the description for anyone who's serious about improving their chess. There's a chess improvement workbook you can purchase, or if you want to check out the free sample, see if it's right for you, you can download that as well. Otherwise, peace out and see you guys in the next video.